a 60 square meter flat in an ordinary neighborhood. 3 people view it the same morning. The first wants to live there and works out what will be left after the mortgage. The second wants to let it and works out the annual yield. The third will never sleep there, she works out what it could sell for in 4 years. All 3 bid for the same object, but only one is buying a home. The other 2 are buying an asset. That is the question holding this video together. When the same property serves both for living and for investing, which use wins, and what happens to a city when the same one always wins? Start by defining the word bubble properly, because it is constantly misused. Something being expensive does not make it a bubble. A bubble appears when price detaches from its fundamentals, meaning the rents it can generate and the wages that can pay for it, and is sustained only by the expectation of selling it dearer to somebody else. The fuel is always the same, abundant credit. A moment arrives when the marginal buyer no longer buys for use, but for resale. At that point the market stops pricing homes and starts pricing expectations. And expectations correct all at once. With that clear, take the second question, is a flat always a good investment? No. Whoever bought at the peak of Spain's previous cycle took more than a decade to recover the nominal price paid, and considerably longer once inflation is deducted. A dwelling is also a leveraged, a liquid, indivisible asset concentrated in one single point of the territory. If the neighborhood declines, you cannot diversify. Add transfer taxes, notary fees, service charges, building levies and maintenance. Buying to live remains reasonable, because you swap rent for installments and hedge against future rises. Buying while expecting automatic appreciation is a bet, not a plan. And are we in a bubble today? It helps to separate fact from interpretation. The fact is that the Bank of Spain estimates a moderate overvaluation, of the order of a few percentage points above long-term equilibrium, while an independent European central bank indicator places it considerably higher. But structural conditions do not resemble the cycle that burst. Mortgage standards are stricter, fixed rates dominate, household debt is lower, and the problem is shortage of supply rather than excess. The honest interpretation is uncomfortable for both camps. There is no classic credit bubble, and access is nonetheless worse than ever. That can only be explained by the second transformation, which is financialization. The geographer Albers has described it for years. Housing has shifted from being a durable consumer good to being the main collateral of the global financial system. The world savings seeks stable returns, and urban property offers them at relatively low risk. That is why institutional money dominates residential investment, far above developers and public administrations. The planner Rolnick puts it differently: once housing becomes a financial asset, its social function turns secondary, because the asset does not need anyone living inside to fulfill its purpose. The urban consequence is concrete and measurable. A home's price stops being set by the local wage and starts being set by the highest global bidder. In Spain, around 14% of purchases are made by non-residents, and in some coastal provinces that share approaches 40%. Meanwhile, an average family needs roughly 7 years of gross income to pay for a dwelling, when the threshold considered sustainable sits closer to 4, and in the largest cities the figure climbs far higher. The result is predictable: the age of first purchase shifts towards the late 30s, and family help becomes decisive. Inequality, in other words, is inherited. Now the counterargument, and it deserves respect. Property investment is no parasite. It finances new construction, sustains the professional rental stock, which in Spain barely reaches 8% against close to 20% in other European countries, and creates jobs. The vast majority of landlords are not funds either, but individuals with 1 or 2 dwellings for whom that property is their pension. And there is a serious technical point: if investment is penalized, development falls, and less future supply means higher prices, exactly the opposite of the goal. Expensive housing is, in large part, a genuine shortage problem. It can still be argued that this does not distinguish between 2 very different things. Investing by building new housing increases supply. Investing by buying existing housing creates not 1 square meter, it merely changes the owner and raises the entry price. The first operation solves scarcity, the second monetizes it. The editorial opinion is this: the problem is not that investment exists, but that a basic necessity competes in the same market as deposits, bonds, and gold. While that remains true, the local wage will always lose the auction, because it is bidding against the capital of the entire world. Return to the opening question. Cities to invest in, or cities to live in? No city chooses that at a council meeting, but it chooses it daily through small decisions. How much public land it sells rather than leases, how much housing it keeps permanently outside the market, how it taxes second and third homes, and whether it lets residential use compete against more profitable ones. So when the next headline announces a record rise in house prices, the useful question is not whether now is a good time to buy. The useful question is whose wealth has just increased, and who has just been permanently priced out of that city.